I remember riding the bus home from school on a Tuesday night. We were dismissed a lot later than usual because it was our accounting final exam. I thought it'd be just like any other Tuesday night for me. Walking down the street of Don Fabian, chatting with my friends, stopping every now and then for some street food, and of course, waiting for a bus ride home. I got in an air-conditioned J-Ross bus, and because it was already 9:30 that night, the bus was packed with people who, just like me, wanted to get home. I squeezed through all the people in the bus to get to the middle since it was the part of the bus where it wasn't crowded. After every stop the bus took, it either dropped off some of the commuters or just get a little bit more crowded. When we reached Sandigan, I was finally able to sit down. I remember sitting down next to an old guy, probably around his 40s. He looked decent. He was wearing a blue polo shirt and some brown jeans, and hanging on his arm was what it looked like to be a coat. I was about to sit down when he moved and adjusted himself to the aisle seat and gave me the window seat, which I very much appreciated because I like it when I get to see what's happening outside every time I take the bus home. It usually takes 20 to 30 minutes for me to reach my stop. Most of the time, I take advantage of it and sleep because I sometimes doze off when I'm commuting home. Telling you guys about this now, for some reason, part of me blames myself for this happening to me. And I know I shouldn't. I shouldn't be blaming myself, but maybe if I didn't sleep that Tuesday night, during the ride, none of this would have happened to me. So, I woke up with an empty seat beside me, indicating that the man I sat with probably got off his stop, and I heard the conductor calling out, "Central," which is where I get off. I stood up and got off the bus. I stretched a little bit when I got to the terminal shed, and I looked for my phone inside my bag when my hand landed on something wet on my thigh. I felt the texture of whatever that wet thing was, and it was sticky. So I quickly searched for my phone and turned the flashlight on, and I saw the white sticky substance trickling down my thigh. What was it, I thought? Was it some sort of sticky, sweet drink? I tried to recall if the guy beside me was drinking something, but all I could think of was, what the hell happened? Kinuha ko agad yung wet wipe sa bag ko, tapos pinunasan ko na mabuti yung kamay ko, halos maubos nga yung isang pack ng bagong biling wet wipes ko nung gabing yun. And I tried to really get rid of that sticky feeling while I stood on the sidewalk of the terminal shed. I remember my body heating up and I just couldn't think straight because I was panicking. When I got home, I ran straight to the bathroom and took a shower. And for some reason, I felt itchy. Itchy everywhere. Nakailang sabon ako sa katawan ko kasi sobrang nandidiri ako sa sarili ko sa nangyari. Pinipilit ko isipin na whatever that white sticky substance was something else, and not what my mind has already concluded it to be. Naalala ko pa nga kinakatok na ako ni ate ko kasi ang tagal ko na daw sa CR. Mind you guys, I was wearing a black hoodie and leggings that day. Hanggang ngayon, di ko pa rin nasusuot yung leggings na yun. At kahit hindi ko siya nasusuot, lagi ko siyang pinalalabhan. I guess part of me wants to completely erase whatever happened to me that day. Now, I don't ride the bus anymore when I go home from school. I take the UV or FX Express to school now, and if I were to take the bus ride home, I would have to be in a situation where it would be my last resort. I'm just so scared of what happened to me that I don't allow myself to ride the bus anymore. Di bali na mahal pa masahe basta di na maulit yun. I never told my parents because I didn't want them to worry and because of the fact that I already know what they're gonna tell me. Ba't ka kasi natutulog sa biyahe? Dapat attentive ka sa mga tao sa paligid mo. So I kept my mouth shut. I told my friends about this, and they shared some of their stories similar like mine's. And this gave me such a sick feeling of how these things happen so often that it almost seems normal, and it shouldn't be. Part of me wanted to report it, but I didn't know who to go to. I wanted that man in that blue polo shirt to suffer. I was so angry because I didn't want him to get away with it and do it again to someone else. But the problem is, how am I supposed to find him? How many more of people like him are out there? I felt so violated. I felt like an object used for sexual satisfaction. I felt so sexualized. Having able to think about what happened to me that day, nothing about what I was wearing was tempting. I didn't look a certain way to provoke him. I felt as if it were my fault. And I don't understand. If a girl wears something revealing or not, it's somehow entirely her fault if she gets harassed. In our society, people either seem to forget or are willing to overlook the fact that the individual who harassed made a conscious decision and a deliberate attempt to do just that. It's saddening to know that people still turn a blind eye regarding this matter. I'm a victim of sexual harassment, and the number of times that I've been catcalled and sexually harassed in public disgusts me. It annoys me when you speak to someone about it, and sometimes the first question they ask you is, "What were you wearing?" And what? I don't get it, because how is it because of what I was wearing? But what disgusts me the most is that these people have the audacity to blame the victim for what they were wearing and that it was an invitation for harassment. Also, the fact that some people take your no or rejection as a challenge makes it even more frustrating. For your education, victim blaming is in fact rampant in the Philippines. This is why so many of our family court judges, prosecutors, police persons, and social workers are having training in gender-sensitive manners of handling cases. I can tell you about a specific case where women go to the police stations and report cases of rape are subjected to comments like, "Ano ba kasi suot mo? Baka naman nilalandi mo kasi." These are real. Judges have dismissed sexual assault and rape cases for women not having fought the harassment and or rape hard enough, not shouting, not reporting right away, not doing anything, having kept quiet, and so many more. What else? Rape jokes. Rape jokes are not funny, period. Besides the fact that you're joking about a very, very serious topic, it can be very triggering for survivors, especially to hear the subject being portrayed so lightly and as something to laugh about. Rape is never funny, not with men, not with women, not in any situation. Parents who blame girls for posting sexy selfies and leading their sons into quote-unquote sin, instead of talking with their sons about their responsibilities for their own sexual expressions. By saying boys will be boys, we give men the excuse to act in an unbehaved manner and write it off as a typical man's behavior. Saying this perpetuates what is expected of boys and that it is okay to be aggressive because it's boys will be boys. You're excusing boys for their aggressive behavior instead of teaching them how to respect those around them. We let their actions go without consequences. Not only that, we have a terrible understanding of consent. No does not mean convince me. According to denimdayinfo.org, consent is about mutual desire. People will argue just about anything counts as consent, and that a woman or any individual of that matter, regardless of gender, has to kick and scream and shout no in order to prove that they don't want sex. People claim that a short skirt or a tight top means a woman is asking for it and that a man is entitled to have sex with her even if she says no. All of it is deeply inclined to rape culture. Now, rape culture is a culture in which sexual violence is treated as the norm and victims are blamed for their own assaults. It's not just about sexual violence itself, but about cultural norms and institutions that protect rapists, promote impunity, shame victims, and demand that victims, mostly women, make unreasonable sacrifices to avoid the assault. It's an environment that breeds a culture of victim blaming, where individuals are judged and perceived as being responsible for what has happened to them. Now, why is it so dangerous? Victim blaming is dangerous because it makes it harder for the victim or survivor to come forward and report the abuse. If the survivor or victim knows that you or society blames them for the abuse, they won't feel safe or comfortable coming forward and talking to you. Victim blaming, this attitude also reinforces that it's the victim's fault that it's happening. Again, it's not the victim's fault or responsibility. By engaging in victim blaming attitudes, society allows the abuser to perpetuate sexual assault while avoiding the accountability for their actions. It's the shaming that is meant to cast doubt and gaslight someone who has experienced the trauma. I wouldn't trust my personal safety around people who are victim blamers because they're comfortable rationalizing why the perpetrator's acts are the victim's fault. That is a clear sign of an abuser in my experience. The person who says, "But what were you wearing that made them think you wanted it?" is the same person who looks for excuses for the abuse someone has suffered because they empathize with the abuser rather than the victim. Here's a fact. According to InsideSouthern.edu, men, women, and children of all ages, races, religions, and economic classes can be and have been victims of sexual assault. Sexual assault occurs in rural areas, small towns, and larger cities. It's estimated that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted by the age of 18. According to Medium.org, a rape or attempted rape occurs every 5 minutes. Here's another fact. Most sexual assaults are committed by someone the victim knows. Studies show that approximately 80% to 90% of women reporting sexual assaults knew their assailant. Here's another fact. A sexual assault can happen anywhere and at any time. The majority of assaults occur in places ordinarily thought to be safe, such as homes, modes of transportation, and offices. Here's another fact. Men can be and are sexually assaulted. Current statistics indicate that 1 in 6 men are sexually assaulted in their lifetime. Sexual assault of men is thought to be greatly underreported. Men can be sexually assaulted too. Many often think that only women get raped, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Statistics show that 1 out of every 10 rape victims are male. By believing a man cannot be raped, we enforce a stereotype that men will always voluntarily have sex because that's all they want and take away his chance at justice. We make men go through their traumatic experience alone because they are often ashamed of what happened. Men can be raped too, and in order to stop rape culture, we need to come to terms with this first. Eto guys, not being biased if iniisip ng iba sa inyo na bakit parang yung sa babae lang umiikot yung podcast na to. But the thing is, it rarely happens with men. Still, we cannot deny the fact that women are majorly the ones going through such cases. Often, I see posts on Facebook, mostly guys ranting about the double standard sa gantong topic. Bakit daw lagi yung babae yung aping-api sa gantong sitwasyon? Well, I'm all for addressing men being objectified, but if we're only going to raise this issue whenever a woman who has suffered from sexual harassment raises their voice, then what you're fighting for is not because men are being objectified. Regardless dapat, don't be afraid of speaking up of your abuse no matter if you're a man. Di porket sinasabi ng society na babae lang na-abuse, ibig sabihin na hindi posible yun mangyari sa inyo. To be born with a vagina is a curse. Women have to take measures to cut down their risks of rape. Diba tayong mga babae, minsan pagka pauwi na tayo, we often choose the safest route home. Dumadaan tayo sa kung saan maraming ilaw, sa mga maliwanag na lugar, o kaya we take the safest transport we can use. Sometimes, di ba, pagka puro lalaki nasa isang alley or sa isang area, na kukunwari tayo na parang matapang tayo, ginagawa natin, iniiba natin yung buong pagkalakad natin because we carefully choose how we're not going to be seen as a target. For women, all of this is almost normal. It's very futile, but normal. Women should not have to take precautions, and men should not rape. In a civilized society, rape should not exist. I asked a question on Instagram, and one of my schoolmates back then in grade 10 responded saying, "Rape culture is a terrible product of patriarchy." Don't get me wrong, I know men experience this as well, but ever since men were deemed as dominant in the past, us women are oppressed to this day. We are seen as weak, and only because we weren't given opportunities that men had, and that us women are only there to serve them, making us look submissive, resulting of us being stripped away of our rights. And this is something all of us should understand. I'm all for equality, but this is embedded in history. Rape is a historic crime used by men against their enemies. Diba nga with the Soviet army, they basically raped their way through women and girls of Poland, Austria, Germany. Sabi nga nila na at the end of World War II, there are believed to have been between 100,000 and 200 million victims. Bearing in mind, many of these were females who were raped repeatedly by different soldiers. Actually, look at any war or conflict. There will always be women and girls who have been raped. Women and girls are a commodity. Their vaginas are commodities. Still blame the victim for what she was wearing? Rape was already a thing back in the 1950s when women wore pleated below-knee skirts. Rape was already a thing in the 1800s when women wore frocks and several layers of clothing underneath. Rape has nothing to do with fashion and everything to do with rapists. Ngayon yung sabihin sa akin na dahil sa suot ng babae. If you take anything from today's podcast, I hope you become mindful of the language you see of how we might unconsciously perpetuate implicit beliefs that underlie rape culture. Ask yourselves, are we keeping people accounted for their actions? Are we speaking up enough? To all the men out there who stand with us and do not give up, we need you to keep fighting for us, supporting us and our rights to be more than just a vagina. Therefore, stop teaching girls how to dress and start teaching boys not to rape. Together we can eradicate unnecessary social norms that questions what is decent and what is not. Rape, sexual assault, victim blaming, and all else that comes with rape culture is not normal and should not be seen as such. No one has a fundamental right to sex. What we have is a right to consent, or the right to refuse, and the right to change our minds. She is not dressed like a slut. You just think like a rapist. To the victims, remember that every time you speak your truth, you inspire someone else to do the same. Every time you reject the shame, you inspire someone else to do the same. And every time you reclaim your worth, you inspire someone else to do the same. I see you, I believe you, and I'm listening. No means no, and stop means stop. It's not that hard, is it? Signing off. This is Elle'sVoice. Goodbye.